Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all. Today is Monday. It is July 17th. Just to let you guys know, we weren't starting late, although it looks like we started late. I played the intro and I was doing my thing, and I came back and I sat down and I was like, man, that's really weird. We don't have any viewers yet? That seems incredibly odd. That's not like us. And then I looked and I didn't click go. Apparently, I need some more coffee. I was teasing in the write up. If you look on like Facebook and I think YouTube, you can see I always put like a little write up or whatever. And I said that we were recovering from the weekend hangover, and I guess that was apparently true. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. I don't have my headphones with me, but I do have my microphone with me. So the sound is kind of odd on my end. So hopefully it's not too bad on your end. I know. Look at this, the peanut gallery immediately. Um, Simon could feel the smoke coming out of Miss Patty's ears 3 hours away. It was very intense, very intense. But anyway, we are now we are on the move. I've got the little ones with me. We got a couple days away, just some littles and mom time, so they were pretty excited. We got stuck in traffic. The chronicles never end, but we made it. We're in one piece and we're having fun, right, guys? Yeah, because they're nodding over there. So we appreciate you guys. Oh my goodness, the drama is real over there. So anyway, I hope that you guys had a great weekend. If you follow social, I believe it or not, I used to be, when I was running for office, I was so immersed in social media and everything else, and now I'm like, I mean, if I have to, because I just my goal was to kind of unplug a little bit by not running for office personally this time. And it turns out that that's not actually going to get to be the case, which is quite frustrating for the person who wanted to unplug. And those around her, as you just heard from my peanut gallery about how I never just play with them, which is drama, by the way, pure drama. Anyway, so there was a lot that happened this weekend, and I want you guys to hold on. Let me. I have like 9 million tabs because I also am trying to do some other things to help us generate income and make TFL a success and all of the wonderful endeavors that we have here. Mike Pense has gotten a rough go at it, and I'm not mad about it. He deserves it. Let me see here. I don't know if you guys got to see this video or not this weekend. I guess it was from a 4th of July parade, or I mean that's what I assume it is. Walt found it. Oh well, no, just kidding. Wrong button. Walt found it on social media, and it was perfectly timed for the nonsense that Mike Pence did with Tucker Carlson, which you can bet your keister we're going to talk about. Look at this. This little girl just lobs a water balloon and headshot. Look, it was just a water balloon, and it's just but that girl has amazing aim. Look at her; she's proud of herself. That's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. I think there's one thing we don't all agree on who we are voting for president here on Texas Fully Loaded, and that's part of what makes us, this one big happy dysfunctional family. Is that we all have opinions and we're proud of them, and so when we see but we can all agree not Mike Pence. I think that that's something that everybody, I have yet in my travels on the show and talking with other people, I have yet to find somebody that's like, you know what, I'm all for Mike Pence. So I wonder if he's paying those crowds of people. I don't understand. No, it's not me, Miss Patty. I promise you. It might be someone who's 6'3". Yeah, it's not me. I'm the normal, rational, calm one on this show. Anyway, but yeah, we can all agree that it's not Mike Pence. I don't know if you guys watched the Tucker Carlson interview with Mike Pence. There was a few like little short clips of it, but it cut off when Mike Pence started to answer. And you know how I feel about that. So I went back, I found a clip. It's like 5 minutes long, But it's worth the 5 minutes because I think it gives a real light of what the idiocracy that we're dealing with here. The very, I don't care about you. I don't care about anybody. He does make the statement, that's not my concern, Tucker. And I've heard this rant from you before. This is not my concern. Well, it needs to be your concern. Because even his follow-up explanation, it was just not sufficient. I was very appalled that this man was ever the vice president. If you got your, forget the fact that he just said, forget the fact that what happened on January 6, 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. Forget all that. If his arrogance and his to the American people doesn't piss you off in this, then we need to have a long talk. So I'm going to let this play. Like I said, it's about 5 minutes long, but I think it's worth the 5 minutes. So let's get this going here. And I'll try and keep on top of the ads
because we've sent our ammunition to Ukraine, which has not yet won the war, whatever that means. No one has defined it. But isn't that prima facie evidence that we have become weaker militarily by our support from Ukraine? Or how am I missing something?
Well,
we're out of ammunition, so we're sending cluster bombs.
Well, first off, since Joe Biden took office, he's been working to cut military spending. And frankly, the recent debt ceiling deal that was done, if they don't pass all their 13 appropriations bills, will result in a 1% cut in our military spending after inflation in 2025. Look, China is floating a new battleship every month in the Pacific. We don't need to rebuild our military. We need to build a military strong enough to meet the challenges America will face in the 21st century. And as President of the United States, I'll do that.
Amen.
I promise you.
Last question on Ukraine, though. The Pentagon says that because of the munitions and the material we have sent to Ukraine, we're very low in our stockpiles. Is that a concern to you?
Yeah. On the 155 artillery. And I have no reason to disbelieve that. Look, it's the answer, though, is not to shrink from America's role as leader of the free world. The answer is to invest in our national defense. I really do believe that. Look, remember, in a year and a half, and again, we have a strong disagreement on
Well, I'm not sure we do.
That's okay. Well, that'd be great if we didn't. But let me say to you, we've made real progress there. Look, a year and a half ago, Russia had the second most powerful military in the world. Today, they have the second most powerful military in Ukraine. All right? That's progress. That's progress. And that's a result of what the United States and our allies have invested. But let me say one thing about Joe. Can I say one thing about Joe Biden on this? Okay. And I've been critical of him. Look, our administration came in, and the Obama-Biden administration had refused to give military support and resources to Ukraine. We ended that. We started providing Javelin missiles. I'll never forget standing in the woods a couple of weeks ago in a little town called Moshe, where the soldier told me about when the Russian tanks approached and how many soldiers they lost in the first 24 hours. And then the colonel looked at me and smiled and said, and then the Javelin missiles arrived. And I said, we sent you those Javelin missiles. And he said, yes, sir, you did. I mean, we provided arms to Ukraine so they would be better equipped for this moment.
But we asked a question. I'm sorry.
Joe Biden cut off military spending when he came in. And even after that heartless, unprovoked invasion, which Joe Biden actually said, we don't know what we'd do if it was a small invasion. I mean, he signaled incredible weakness, especially after that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And all along the way, the Biden administration has been slow in providing military support. Make no mistake about this. We promised them 33 Abrams tanks in January. I heard again 2 weeks ago in Ukraine, they still don't have them. We've been telling them we'll train their F-16 pilots, but now they're saying maybe January we'll let somebody transfer some jets.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you, I know you're running for president. You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years. Yeah. Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased, and yet your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern. I'm running for president of the United States because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. And as president of the United States, we're going to restore law and order in our cities. We're going to secure our border. We're going to get this economy moving again. And we're going to make sure that we have men and women on our courts at every level that will stand for the right to life and defend all the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution. Anybody that says that we can't be the leader of the free world and solve our problems at home has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth. We can do both. And as president of the United States, we will secure our border, we will support our military, we will revive our economy and stand by our values, and we will also lead the world for freedom under my administration. I promise you.
Amen. Vice President Mike Pence, thank you very much.
It's not his concern. It's not his concern. I don't know why all you people are getting all your panties in a bunch. It's not his concern. We can do it all. It's fine. You know, he talks about, here's kind of some of my, and maybe I'm wrong. So if I'm wrong, y'all tell me that I'm wrong. But he talks about how it's not that we can't strengthen our military. We're not trading in a car when we give away our tanks and our ammunition and all of these other things to Ukraine. They're not sending us new things back. And I get it. Look, we've sent ammunition around the world before. We've put our resources in the hands of our enemies before. I mean allies. I'm sorry. Did I say enemies? I meant allies, right? You know, like when we left all of those tanks and missile heads and AKs and all that kind of stuff in Afghanistan, right in the middle of hostile territory. It doesn't matter. Why in the world would we give away more ammunition? We are literally on the brink of war, and the concept is to catch Jerry with his trousers down. But the problem is that this time we are Jerry. And at the hands of our government, at the hands of the only people in the globe that can do this, they're just giving all away, all of our resources. Do we need newer technology and more equipment? Absolutely we do. Will that strengthen us? Absolutely it will. But seeing tensions heat up all around the globe at the hands of this presidency at that, the best option is Ukraine needs more. His best argument back was, well, you know what? Russia used to be number 2 in the world for military power, but we made sure that now they're only number 2 in Ukraine. Like, I think that was like his ha-ha moment. Like, he wanted everyone to chuckle and nobody chuckled. It's awkward. It's awkward when you make a joke and nobody laughs. The joke is that we're the suckers this time. That's the real joke. That's the real tragedy. We, the people, are the suckers. We, the people, are the ones that are losing in this fight, in this battle, because the elected, the bureaucrats, the people who know better than you, right? They're the ones that are giving away all of our resources. And at the beginning of this war in Ukraine with Russia, I don't think that most people had a real intense problem with us sending things over there. I think that most people were like, you know, like that's fine. That kind of makes a little bit of sense. We help people. We're the world's superhero, right? That's why Captain America, the cliche is so perfect, because it's not just that guy. Like, we're the captain of the world, right? Like, we're the ones that make everything better. We're like the mama bear and the papa bear all rolled into one country, right? We go in and we save everybody, make sure that they have clean water and food and all that kind of stuff. We head up NATO, we head up all of these organizations around the world. And if we're not the heads of it, we're certainly a big player, probably the biggest funding player in most of these accessories. We go into Africa, we go into South America, we make sure that they have running water. We make sure that doctors are being deployed to these places. And yes, these are national or global efforts. But the real reality is that the United States is the one that's sending more people. The United States is sending more resources, and the United States is really the one that's footing most of the bill. Because we are the most generous people in the world. Right? So when you have some jackwagon who used to be the vice president of the United States of America, then come back and try and run for president and say, it's not my concern what you people think. I know what's best. We're going to do it all. It's fine. No, you're not. You're not going to do it all. Nobody can do it all. You need to have some priorities. You need to have some clear-cut stuff. And so far, all you sounded like was every single other politician that's even running for dog catcher saying, we need a secure border, because everybody freaking says that. So, Mike Pence, you're not showing us anything that deems you worthy to even be on a stage. You need to sit down and shut up and go back into your little hole. I agree, Simon. I was expecting a Scooby-Doo moment as well. And the bad guy is Mr. Biden. Like, literally, that's exactly what should have happened there. Mike Pence is a disgrace. He's a turncoat, and he is not for the people. He is for the status. And you need to ask every politician that you encounter this election cycle, are you for the people or are you for the status? And they're going to say, well, I don't know what you mean by that. It's fairly simple what is meant by that. Are you just shopping for a job? Do you just need that extra paycheck? Or was your retirement not enough? Like, ask these questions. Who is funding you? And if it is a questionable person that's funding you, I get it. You need money to run your campaign. So they stand for this. How are you going to combat that? Because these are the real questions that we're not asking politicians. Everyone gets up and says, well, I heard that so-and-so is going to take away our Social Security. Look, the Democrats are taking away your Social Security far faster than the Republicans ever dream of taking away. That's a fact. Do you know why? Because they're bankrupting your country. It doesn't matter that you've paid into it. Okay? That's irrelevant. They are bankrupting us. They are thrusting us into these wars. They're funding our enemies. They're funding everybody except us. So your Social Security, as much as I know that people live for their Social Security. I get that. I know that more people do more with Social Security than some people do with a 40-hour-a-week job. I get it. Because they don't just take care of their own personal needs and feed their cat a can of cat food a week. A lot of people on Social Security are also running households. Simon made a very, I mean, this is not a new statement. People our age will not see the Social Security that we have also paid into. Do you know why? Because it's going somewhere else. They're transferring money behind your back, guys. They're literally taking it out of your personal savings account, which is the concept of what Social Security was supposed to be. Because you, Joe Public, can't take care of yourself. You couldn't prepare. Well, you're right. We can't prepare when they keep rising the cost of our personal property taxes, when they keep rising the cost of gasoline. Did you see that gasoline jumped up 25 cents over the weekend? 25 cents over the weekend. a gallon of milk, a carton of eggs, bread. Do I need to keep going on? Meat, vegetables. This crap ain't cheap, y'all. Joe Public cannot take care of themselves when big government keeps intervening. This was the plan that was put into place at the end of World War II. And love him or hate him, John F. Kennedy Jr. was murdered because he was trying to stand in the gap to stop that crap. And Johnson and the CIA were like, oh, no, that's not going to fly. We have a plan in place. And if you kind of watch through, and I think I touched on this a little bit last week, but if you go backwards and you look at history backwards, right? So if you started from 2021, pick a random date, and then you started blinking everything and you started looking backwards, you'd be like, what in the actual crap? Hey, there. But we don't want to do that because we enjoy short-term memory. The worst part is that we have no long-term memory and we have incredibly short-term memory loss because we can't remember from one election cycle to the next. My cousin Kenny posted on Facebook, I think it was yesterday, and it was a picture of him filling up his van. And I think he said in 2019. I think it was in 2019. And he said $20. It was like $20 and like 23 cents or some nonsense like that. And he goes, I was able to completely fill my car up for $20, my van up for $20 a few years ago. Elections matter. And so I commented on there with a sad face. And I said, because I just put $20 in my gas tank and I didn't even get 5 gallons. And then I hashtagged elections matter. Then somebody after me posts, I don't vote anymore. This is why I don't vote anymore, or something along those lines. And he said, you have to, or, he implied to her that she had to. And then I responded with, your silence is your compliance. Because you guys know that's one of my favorite catchphrases. Because it's so true. And when we can wake more people up to that, the better off that we will be. I still fight with my youngest sister, because she still also will not vote. And she's like, I don't want to have to do the research that's involved in it. And I don't want to have to do this. And I don't want to have to do that. Besides, none of your stupid Republicans went blah, 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 blah. And I said, actually, that's where you're wrong. So if you actually would explore what Republicans are standing for and what fights we're fighting and what battles we're trying to be in, and people quit allowing the March elections to not be the most important elections. And I always say the March, because in Texas it's March. But your primary, whatever state you're in, is more important. I'm going to move that for us and it flying. Is more important than your November election. Because people should not be having to go to the ballot box like this. And the sooner we get people to realize that, the better off we're going to be. There are so many big donors who refuse. No, Danny, no. We have real elections in the primaries, but people don't show up to vote. People do not show up to vote in a primary. When you have over 1 million people, fake number, when you have 1 million people who vote in November and you have 3,000 people that vote in March, you cannot blame a stolen election. We have to get people to the polls in March. Is there some tomfoolery going on in March? Absolutely there is. But if we actually flooded the ballot boxes, because they're not expecting the flood in March. They wait for November to screw us. No. You can sit here and say that all you want to, but nobody shows up to vote in March. Get your people to the polls in March and watch there be a difference. Everyone wants to talk about, oh, we have to vote on election day in November because then we throw off their algorithms. Imagine how much we throw off their algorithm when their crap candidate doesn't even make it past the March primary. They know that is the number one thing. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a political science class. It doesn't matter if you're paying $50 for a free class from the Liberty Institute. It does not matter where you get your election information. Every single politician, every single political consultant, every single grassroots person will tell you nobody shows up to vote in March. We could have real change if people would vote in March. We would have less of this in November if people would show up in March. The number of phone calls that I made during the primaries and leading up to the primaries over the last 2 election cycles, guys, Arthur and Charlotte, the number of people that would tell me on the phone or to my face, I appreciate you, but I don't vote until November. I'm sorry, why? And they said, oh, well, we just let it sort itself out for March. What? I don't understand. What do you mean you just let it? Wait, you do what? How do you let it sort itself out for March? That literally doesn't even make sense, right? And they're like, oh no, it's just because people have more, they pay more attention than I do, and so I don't really pay attention to March. I just let March play itself out. That's a real, desperate, horrible problem that we have in the United States of America, that we have here in Texas. Blame the people, not the that literally doesn't make any sense. When the people don't show up, the criminals have all the power. That's as big as I can make that, unfortunately. When the people don't show up, the criminals have all of the power. So yes, I will continue to blame the people because we are responsible for this crap. We, the people, have to carry this burden because we don't want to show up in March. We'll let somebody else do it because, well, I don't really know what it's about. I didn't have time to research it. That's exactly it. When good men do nothing, that is evil enough. There are really good people who run for office that don't get any support because people sit on the sidelines until November. When millions of people sit on the sidelines, what do you expect to happen? My mom actually, let me see if I can find this really quick. I've read this before, and I'm sure that many of you have also read this before. And it pertains to a host of things. But hear it and tell me what you think. I heard this story once about a teacher who took a fish out of its bowl and left it on a classroom of children as it flopped around. Before he left, telling them that if anyone left their seat, they would be expelled. All of the children sat and watched as this fish flopped, gasping for air, not wanting to get up to avoid getting in trouble. Finally, a girl sprang up from her chair and ran to the fish, placing it back in the bowl. Ultimately, she was the one who refused to let the fish die. When the teacher returned, he told the class that this was a lesson, that the fear of getting in trouble should never stop you from doing what is right, that sometimes you may have to oppose authority and groupthink simply because it's the right thing to do. Now, that kind of applies to a lot of things, but it also applies to our politics. When everybody is just sitting on the sidelines watching the primaries flop around and gasp for air. Because, well, I don't want to pick the wrong person. America loses. When the most important election in the election cycle is the primary. And over 3/4 of the voters don't show up, we lose. Donors, activists, voters. If you don't care more about the draft than you do about the game, it doesn't matter what players are on the field. The draft is what matters.
Just give me one. That's it. Please. Yeah.
Fair, Simon. Commercial break. And also Boo, because we do have too much to say. We're going to take a commercial break. I'm going to hush down the little radicals over here, and we'll come right back, okay? Go get some coffee. We love you. We'll be right back. Sorry, music in the background. I don't know why, but a huge thank you. Oh, I know why, because of the website. My bad. Hold on. A huge thank you to our amazing sponsors, the Montgomery County Tea Party. Don't forget the first and third Monday of every month, which is today. Today is the day. Be it Citizens Grill in Conroe, Texas. It is going to be a blast, so make sure that you're there. I'm excited. Arthur and Charlotte will be there. They're going to be signing autographs, I'm sure. Arthur just did a little happy dance, so I'm going to take that as a yes. He's going to be signing autographs. So it's going to be a good time. I can't wait to say it. Today is the day, Miss Patty. I'm excited. And then the Vietnam Veterans of America, their service and sacrifice went far beyond a distant shore. They continue to still serve our communities, their fellow veterans, and their families. So make sure you check them out. Go to Vietnam. It's actually, I think it's vva.org is their website. But you know what? I don't ever have to second guess myself ever again on somebody's website. Do you know why? Because, I guess I should show you why. We have our brand new website is up and it's not brand new. It's really just been redesigned, reimagined. Look at this. Isn't this lovely? It's lovely. Come over here to where it says sponsors and friends right here. You see that pretty little tab right there? And then you can click on it right here. Here they are, Vietnam Veterans of America. Bam! I was right, VVA.org. What's up? Okay, so make sure you go there, and then you can find a local branch for to wherever you are so that you can support them as well. Of course, don't forget about the Texas Fully Loaded merchandise shop. You guys definitely want to make sure that you head on over. We've kind of revamped it again. We gave more. Sometimes more is less. So we decided to, or less is more. So we ramped down. I picked out my two favorite colors. We have these amazing cups still. You've got to, and look at this 1836. You know you're winning. Come on now. Make sure that you guys come over here, support my dad's business, support Texas Fully Loaded. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. And don't forget, you can still support us directly. You just go to texasfullyloaded.com and click on hashtag We the People Work. You can find all of our friends and sponsors. Isn't that right? That's right. And who we love, like all of our J6 stuff. So make sure you do that. Arthur, you are ready to go, bro.
I am.
He is. But we're not leaving yet.
Away.
We need to make an item that costs. So here was the fun thing. So when we were discussing stuff with my dad, Walt said anything that was Texas had to be 1836, and anything that is the United States needs to be 1845. Yeah, I think that's right. I might lose my Texas card again. Anyway, because that was the year we joined the Union instead of 1776. Get it? All right. I apologize. I'm here. Don't hate me, Simon. I'm not Googling anything. Okay. You know what? Because 1836 is the more important thing anyway. I'm moving on. Moving forward. Okay. Back to where we were. I did go. We went a little bit more one direction than I had planned to. So I need to circle back just a touch for just a second. Please don't delete, Sandra. Look, Miss Patty has no comment unless it's like I can't see it because it's in the comment section and I can't see pictures and emojis. Sometimes I can see the emoji. Okay. All right, where were we? Okay, hold on. I wanted to come back to Danny's comment here. He said perpetuating this government and this system is a crime in itself, and allowing government to continue is a sin in my mind. I would like to save as many as possible. Our government is the real killer, or is the killer. And I agree. And the only way to get rid of this government is to vote them out in the primaries. Because if they're not on the November ballot, they don't win. They don't win. But we have this real sin in our country where we don't vote in the primaries. You might vote in the primaries, but do the people around you vote in the primaries? Do you recruit people like you do in November? Do you make the big push? Because people don't. People don't make the push to go and vote in the primary. That's exactly what happens when people don't vote in the primaries. That's all it is. I'm still trying. How ridiculous is this show? Absolutely insane. We can't exactly just go running into buildings, shooting up the places. Even when we go running into buildings invited, people end up in jail. So we still have the ability in this country to fix things at the ballot box if people will vote in March. People have to vote in the primaries. It is, I will, that is one sword I will absolutely die on. Now, I wanted to go backwards just a touch because one of the dumbass things that Mike Pence said, ooh, it's a good thing the little running here, I got yelled at, that Mike Pence said was, he was talking about the military and he was talking about how, it was, we need to send more things to the Ukraine. Poor Ukraine. They're not with us, right? Or we're not doing enough for them. We're not sending them millions and zillions of dollars enough and resources and all of the things. So one of the things that happened, and we did touch on it just a little bit on, I think, Friday show or Thursday show, Friday show. The reservists are being called back up. Like there's the IRRs, they're being called back up and they're being sent to Europe for a NATO mission following a new Biden order. Now, I've seen a lot of people in the military circles and people who I know that are retired or prior service and all that kind of stuff. And they're all saying the same thing. Yeah, well, we all saw this coming. Joe Biden did sign an executive order on Thursday that will allow the Pentagon to tap reserve forces for deployment to Europe as part of its longstanding NATO mission on the continent. According to a copy, this is from military.com, according to the copy of the order released by the White House, it allows the military to use up to 3,000 reserve service members to augment its forces in Europe, which grew in reaction to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's funny, we are not supposed to be going. Not one American soldier. Oh, this is weird. I feel like I'm in a vortex. The Pentagon said last year it increased the troop presence on the continent by about 20,000 troops as Russian President Vladimir Putin attempted to seize the country, bringing the total U.S. forces and troops to more than 100 in Europe. To more than 100,000. It's unlocking additional forces for use in support of this operation. The Pentagon top spokesman, Brigadier General Pat Ryder, told reporters on a phone call Thursday. Lieutenant Governor Douglas Sims, the Joint Staff Director for Operations, who also briefed the reporters, said that the authorities will enable the department to better support and sustain its enhanced presence and level of operations in Europe. These are not additional forces. Over time, we may have had some from an active component organizing, doing something. That job now under these authorities may be something that the reserve component may. Whoops. Sorry, I was sending a text message and I wasn't meaning to. So what they're saying is it's not what you think it is. We're just replenishing. We're going to be flipping things back and forth. That's not what's being put out. Actually, what's being put out is that we really have got to pay attention to who we elect because they're all lying to us. We were told that we were not going to be sending more troops over to Europe. We were told that the numbers would not grow, and yet within less than 1 year, the numbers grew of troops that were in Europe. If our government is doing so good by funding Ukraine, why do we need to send more people over? Why are the ready reserves being called back up? Now, the ready reserves are not just the IRRs, the inactive ready reserves. They're being called back up. They're being put on notice. This is an issue. We were talking about it. We have as you guys know, I have an 18-year-old, and he had to get his selective service card. And, he's been very staunch on he doesn't want to join the military for multiple reasons. That used to not be the case. He used to want to Danny, I don't really know what you want me to say to this. You're right. You're right. Because they are counting on the fact that there are people just like you and more people just like you who are refusing to vote because, well, they're going to get what they want anyway. And I'm not saying that they may not, but if we don't do our part, then they win. So you can sit there and you can throw your propaganda out, but I'm never going to sit here and say, you know what, just start shooting. That's not the answer to this. If we truly believe in this country and the process of this country, then that's what we have to go with. Period. We don't have to shoot first. They will. And because they're going to shoot like clones instead of like Jedis, we don't have to worry about them freaking hitting us. But I can promise you that if we have half the balls that we want to pretend like we do, we're going to fight the right way. It's just that simple. This is not Stockholm Syndrome. Who's going to be there to arrest them? Who? We have a process. We have to do things the right way. Did Trump get screwed? He absolutely did. And the best way to fix this is to go and vote in the primaries so that we can make sure that we have the right people in place. Because as long as people are still having to hold their nose, they're not going to win. We are not going to win. We continue to give them the pieces because we don't do our part of the game. It's just like a big game of chess. And if we just allow them to dominate the board and we don't even freaking move our pieces, then they will always win. Just like what's happening in Europe. We are fighting a battle here in the United States. And the fact that our government is sending more people over to Europe to yet again deplete our, it's not just to bring us back to this. We're not just talking about the arms that they're sending over to the Ukraine. They're also now sending more of our troops. They're calling people up. There's been reports all over the place about more tanks being moved and this, that, and the third, and more military equipment that is being moved. And I kind of blew some of that off because I guess like when you live around bases, like I always have, even in South Texas, we have bases down there. We have a National Guard reserve unit there that moves equipment all the time. We have the National Guard all along the U.S. southern border. So I guess in my, maybe it's just me being blind to some of it, or just being like, well, I mean, we have to move things from point A to point B. They rotate the stock, if you will. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. And now that we're talking about pulling up IRRs, and then we're talking about sending more stuff over to the Ukraine, how much of the stuff that is being moved from one base to another is actually getting ready to get moved to Europe, to Ukraine, to anywhere but here? How much more? And here's the thing is that the shipyards are not overly producing. The ship, and I say the shipyards, I mean the military builders of the things that we use, like the tanks and the ships and all of it. They're not like, hey, look, we have all these brand new things that are coming out, so it's fine that we're depleting our sources. Like, that's not even happening. Like, we have some serious issues that are happening here in the United States that either out of people just assuming that it something's going on, or that maybe it just is the stock rotating. But it's becoming more and more and more. And it goes back to the question that a lot of people ask and have been asking since the beginning of mass social media. Is it that it's happening more, or is it happening well, yeah, it is, and they're still not doing anything about it. But the question is it happening? Is it happening more, or are we just able to see more of it because these are in everybody's hand now? I mean, we can catch just as it's like the old, is a bear pooping in the woods, or only if we catch them doing it, right? Well, now we can, now we didn't just catch him, but we got him on video pooping in the woods. So I mean, how many times has this happened? How many times has he pooped in the same place, right?
Boo.
Or is it just the time that he got caught?
Sometimes he got caught, boy.
It's the time he got caught, boy. I mean, these are the questions, and now that we're able to see more, is it because are we seeing more because we're looking for it, even like in like the back of our minds? It's like always kind of lurking, even when we're not immediately thinking about it, or what's the rabbit? What's the rabbit for? Bacon, what in the banana peels are you talking about? I'll play. What's the rabbit for? Is that like, what does the fox say? I feel like I sent you a link just so that we're here. FYI, she might just be delirious texting. I'm like, I think you're chasing. Maybe that question is just to make me chase down that rabbit hole, Walter. But I mean, I guess that's also a valid question. Like, how much of this are we just using to make us look everywhere but where we need to be looking? I disagree, Simon. Boo. Boo on you. That hit both of us because that makes me sad. And Walter hates Arby's, so now he won't eat it. Look, I'm not going to disagree, but I'm not eating it knowingly. I'm not going to eat it knowingly. Y'all are rabbit chasers. That's what all of y'all are. Okay. I did have some other things. Hold on. Take two. All right. We talked about Tucker. Arthur, please stop. We talked about Tucker and Pense. We talked about these reservists. Okay, we're making some progress, y'all. We got some.
You guys are cool.
You look at that. Arthur thinks y'all are cool. Okay, here's. Arthur doesn't know y'all like Charlotte does. Notice Charlotte never says those things. I'm willing to take my chances, Simon. Let's talk about bacon. All right, here is another thing that was kind of grinding our gears this weekend. And then we'll talk about this for a few minutes, and then I have the biggest rabbit trail of them all that I want to go down with you guys. So let's play this for a second here and tell me what you think.
NBC, who owns Fox, who owns CNN. At the top of the shareholder list, you have Vanguard and BlackRock. Then you look at the manufacturers of the jabs. Okay, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, who are the top shareholders of those companies, Vanguard and BlackRock. Now you look at the flight companies that banned all flights. No flights unless you're taken care of. Who are the top shareholders? Vanguard, BlackRock. You look at the food. Okay, who are the top shareholders of all this junk food? Vanguard and BlackRock. So the media is controlled, the food is controlled, the narrative is controlled, the transportation is controlled. Who owns Meta? Who owns Snapchat? Who owns, well, used to be, but still kind of does, Twitter? Who owns Google? They're pushing the same narrative. The media is pushing, oh, it's the same company. It's BlackRock. It's Vanguard. Profit-driven companies. If you look at who owns CNBC, who owns Fox, who owns CNN.
Kind of something that just kind of makes everything fall into place a little bit. You know, it was kind of funny this last weekend. A few things. So the first one is I guess they brainwash our kids so much in everything, in the games, in the commercials, even at school. Arthur and Charlotte and I had gone to, I don't know, I think it was what store are we going to that we saw the nurses with the COVID stuff? Five Below. We had gone into Five Below. I was looking for something. And they had this big booth set up about how COVID has not gone away and we need to keep ourselves protected. What? Make it stop. And it bothered me for multiple reasons. Number one, we finally getting people to wake up to the fact that it was really just like a cold or flu or bronchitis, even. Like all of those things have adverse reactions. Some people do die from the cold, the flu, and bronchitis. Pneumonia. Those are things that people can die from. Some people can sail right through them, and then some people do die from these things. I'm probably going to get kicked off of freaking YouTube again. I'm sorry, y'all. Sorry in advance. But then it frustrated me because here you've got everybody else, including the president, coming back saying, you know what, it's pandemic's over. Nothing to see here. Let's just keep on moving on. Is what it is. And they've relaxed the vaccine mandates. They've relaxed, the requirements for jobs. It's no longer a requirement anymore to get the vaccine. Yet Arthur, I think somebody coughed at the house or sneezed, and Arthur said, oh my gosh, they've got COVID. I'm going to die. I don't want to die. Super dramatic. Yes, super dramatic. And I was like, hold everything. And then like we found an old bag and it had one of those little tiny masks that were required for our kids to even walk into their doctor's office. You remember all that crap? And I said, never again. Now, Charlotte wanted to keep it so she could play doctor. And I was like, not on your life. And I threw that thing right in the trash can. Because I'm like, we don't do masks. Unless you're doing open heart surgery, we ain't wearing a mask around here. And ain't nobody having open heart surgery in the house. So we're safe. But they tried so hard to brainwash our children, and Charlotte was like, because she listens to Texas Fully Loaded most days of the week, so she knows the truth. And so Arthur and I had to have a real conversation about it. Be like, hey, just as an FYI, like we don't participate in that nonsense. And if your teachers or anybody else has something to say to you from the contrary of what this conversation's basis was, you tell them to contact your mommy. He goes, or my daddy. And I was like, or your daddy, either one, because we will not tolerate this nonsense being forced into our children's brains. And it's not just at school. It's literally still everywhere. It's in cartoons. It's in commercials. It's literally sitting in the middle of the grocery or in the middle of the store.
It's bad.
I know. I know, Miss Patty. I know. And here I am. I killed that plan. But these are the things that we're seeing that is still being, they're brainwashing our kids. There was another thing, and I have to look more into it. But when we were driving up here yesterday, it was starting to get dark and all that kind of stuff. So they had their little iPads on, and there's this. What was the name of that show you were watching, Arthur? Omsum. Yeah, is that how you say Omsum? And the first few were fine. They were fun little, like, have you ever played the game Would You Rather, or like What If? And so it'd be like, what if we all had 4 hands? You know what I mean? So it was like fun little things like that, and like the pros and the cons of having 4 hands. Well, what if we had 2 moons? What if we had 2 this? What if la 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 la, right? So it was like all these fun things. What if you could become invisible? Like all these fun little things to kind of get kids thinking, right? So I was down. Not right now. I was down for what I was hearing in the background, and it was fine. And if you ride in the car with me, I very rarely listen to music. And I really appreciate it even more that I don't listen to music in the car. Would you stop me like a psycho? If the kids are in the car with me, because then I could hear what it is that they are talking about. I can hear what they're watching, or whatever, right? So then this little Omsum, Yeah. Okay. Awesome starts in with, what if we had no more borders? And I was like, wait, what? Like, now my ears really kind of, they perked right on up. And it starts going into about how tourism will flourish, and about how people can do this, and there'll be more jobs, and there'd be more this, and no more sad days for anyone. We'd be like one big global happiness. And like the way that they packaged it, I'm like, and so I said, oh, just pause that. So apparently, FYI, with YouTube Kids, you can't copy a link and send it to you, like send it to somebody else or whatever, and you can't share it. Like, you can't share it, you can't copy the link, whatever. And so, hi. And so I'm trying to figure out how to share it. And in trying to figure out how I could share it, I accidentally closed out, and I have been scouring to try and find that one specific one again, because I'm like, here is all of this great. It had some STEM stuff, which is like, stop, you're being creepy. You're going to creep out our sponsors. Thank you, Simon. It was in fact crazy. Stop. And so I'm frustrated, because here was all of this great educational, resourceful tools, and then they had a little that kind of slipped up in there. And I talk about it on the show all the time. We have got to be paying attention to what is happening with our kids, what they're learning, how they're listening, what they're listening to, because everything else about the, I don't know, 6 or 7 episodes, and they're not long. They're only like anywhere from like 3 to 10 minute long episodes. They're not ridiculous. They're great to fun animation. The whole entire thing. Oh, okay. The whole entire thing.
Right now.
But then they slip something in that we are so fundamentally against. And one of the things, he's the very first thing I could think of when he said, well, I don't understand why this is bad. And so I said, well, number one, if we don't have borders, we don't have a country. And I said, and number two, Dad loses his job. And he was like, oh, then we don't have a house. And I was like, yes, also, we would not have a house or a nice car to drive. But, and he's like, well, why would they say that open borders are good? And I'm like, because there's a lot of bad people that want to take advantage of our country. And so they're breaking the rules. Even people who are supposed to be in charge of our country are breaking the rules to hurt the people of our country, and to hurt the people who are even coming into the country illegally.
But I can say that.
Yes, Daddy and his friends can help save our country. Just like Mommy and her friends help save our country, right? No. Keep your trigger fingers down. But these are conversations that we now have to have more so than ever with 6-year-olds. I didn't necessarily have to have these kinds of conversations with 6-year-olds when we had the first set of 6-year-olds. I think we did a little bit because we had just moved down to South Texas for the purpose of Manny being in the Border Patrol. Arthur, come on, enough. For Manny being in the Border Patrol, but we didn't have to have the conversation because of the indoctrination in cartoons. I talked to somebody recently within the last couple of weeks, and we were having a really engaging conversation. It was about history. It was about West Texas. It was about, just a lot of invigorating, fun conversations. And it's back when I was forced to be a Texan. Don't #never forget. And in the conversation, this person mentioned that he was a practicing Catholic. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So, we have the same basis of belief systems, right? Protestants and Catholics do. I mean, there's a lot that we don't agree on, but at the end of the day, that we can, Catholics and Christians can agree that the fundamentals of the Bible are all still the same. God created the earth, and Jesus is the way to heaven, and all that kind of stuff, right? So we have things that we can agree on as Christians and Protestants and Catholics, okay? So he's having this conversation, and then he talks about how he is a geologist, and about millions of years ago when things were roaming the earth, and how the waters were, and this, that, and the third in our area. And I was like, I said, well, I have a fun question that I like to ask when people say things like that. And he's like, and I said, I'm not trying to be combative. I truly want to hear where your baseline is. And he goes, okay, well, sure, what you got? And I said, well, you're very passionate and educated about geology and history and about your and about your faith. So how does your faith and geology work together? And he just kind of stared at me and he goes, what? And I said, well, you believe that God created the earth? Yes. And he goes, well, yes. And I said, okay. So if you believe in creationism, your statements about the geology of this area don't mesh. And he just kind of stared at me like, wait, what? Like I wasn't trying to be a jerk, and I didn't. I was really kind. Like, it wasn't a fun setting. That was kind of what the guy looked like. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I was not prepared for this moment, and here we are. And I think that that's a problem. Like, we don't do our part well in questioning things or asking people to not combatively, but defend their stance on making their worlds collide. I remember several years ago, if Alston was born, he just was born. We lived back in Virginia, and we had a creationist scientist come to our church, and it was phenomenal. This was cutting edge. 15 years ago, 16 years ago, it wasn't as popular then as it is now. So it was really kind of like, we were like, what? And thank you, Ken. I love you. So we're listening to this guy speak, this creation scientist speak, and I loved it. And one of my favorite arguments that came out of him, and he had like a magazine, and we subscribed to that for a little while. And of course, now there's Creation Museum, and the church at large is doing a great job at making those resources available, right? There's the Noah's Ark experience up in Kentucky. There is a couple of creation museums out in central Texas, centrally northy Texas area. They're never open when I'm there, but they're there. So I think that we're starting to be able to come to the table with this argument better. And I talk about this often for other arguments. We as Christians are really good at arguing other Christians, but we don't do a great job arguing not Christians. And we do an even worse job talking to Christians or non-Christians to change their minds, right? We can use this to fireproof other Christians, but we can't use it to fireproof people who don't believe in its contents. Okay, so these creation conversations and this geology conversation, it's now starting to become more full circle and more ways on how we can have it. Excuse me one. Sorry, I had to be Mama for a second. Somebody was trying to get a little bit in trouble. Anyway, if the statement that this creation scientist made was, when you make a model, okay, when you've got your little box model or whatever, and you're making it, do you plant a seed and wait for the tree to grow? Do you plant? Do you make an egg and wait for the chicken to hatch? And the answers are no, you don't. So is it ignorant to believe that God made the world the way that it is, in terms of like the canyons or the different layers in geology existing? And he just kind of stared at me. Like, because I said it back, I said it to him. It was more complete and it was in the context of our conversation specifically. And I think I threw his mind for a loop. And I think that this goes back to the conversation that we are so used to in the box thinking that we, even as adults, have forgotten to out of the box thinking. We were talking with Alex this weekend about different, career choices and things that are going to be coming up and whatever. And Alex is very unique in the way that his mind works. He does not fit into the typical box of this is how you're supposed to think and you're going to like it. And so his mind can't work in that world. He gets frustrated. He shuts down. He can't, right? He can't people there. And so he, are you guys over here being farts? I'm using my congressional voice. But I mean, we were talking, he wants to get involved in animation and more technical things than I can even spell. And so, one of the things that he said, well, I might not, maybe I'm not smart enough for it. Or what if I can't, do this or that? And Manny made the statement, he said, son, like, you are smart. Everybody is being conditioned to think one way. But these tech moguls, they're not looking for the people who are conditioned to think one way, because that's not going to make them more millions of dollars. They're looking for the people who can think outside of that box. They've got 900 employees that all think exactly the same way, but that doesn't solve the problem that they can't figure out. When we start using more of this outside of the box thinking, when we start getting outside of our comfort zone, whether it's about politics, whether it's about how we can, our apologetics, whether it's about what our kids are learning, we can't just shield them away from everything. We have to teach them how to combat it. And not just in an argumentative way. It's easy to argue. I mean, anybody can argue and scream and fuss and fight. But you have to be able, the goal is to win somebody's opinion. And the world is fighting to win our kids' opinion. So we have to get there first. I'll tell you what, it was bad enough with all the COVID stuff. But when that little show thing came out with that open borders episode, I almost wrecked the car. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then in spite of myself, I kind of chuckled and I said, of course, because they're literally trying to get to our kids and everything else. COVID, Common Core thinking, all of the things. Of course, they're going to get after them about open borders and about how glorious. Mike said it up there earlier about Simon said it in one of the comments earlier about the one world government and how glorious it's all going to be. Because if they teach a child and the way they want them to go, when they were old, they won't depart from that. We have to implement time limits on electronics for our children. We have to take charge of who they are becoming, because if we don't, the world is going to tell them what they have to become and how they have to become it. And with an 18-year-old, almost 19-year-old who's trying to figure out his way in a world, to a 6-year-old who's trying to figure out his way into the world, we're having to have the same exact conversations. You don't have to do this. You can try something this way. What about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about how important it is to have a agricultural degree or a water management degree. And it's not just being stuck inside of an office, making sure that the city of Laredo doesn't have yet another boil water notice. It's about making sure that we can get water from point A to point B because the farmers need the water for their cattle or for our vegetables or for our fruit. Or you know what? You don't even have to go a degree route. What about HVAC? Hey, we live in Texas. It's 115 degrees all freaking summer long. No, son, you don't have to use all these little tricks to find out what 10 plus 10 is. You know you have 5 fingers here, and you know you have 5 fingers here. And 5 plus 5 is always 10. You don't need to add 20 more and then say, oh, but see, when you take this away, now, if you ever actually sit down and try and understand, like some of these number tricks that Arthur is showing us that they're trying to teach them in school, it will make you want to punch a baby. It has got to be the most god-awful, stupid crap I have ever seen in my entire life. And here's the thing. I'm with you. We should just homeschool our children and everything will be hunky-dory and be marvelous. But when we teach our children the right way to do things, and they say, well, how come they're telling us to do this? And then you say, well, this is why they're showing you this. But if you see how much faster and simpler this is, guess what? Now they can see both sides and they can realize, number one, that our way was way easier. And number two, now they're a genius in front of everybody else. Now they can have the opportunity to get that bigger career opportunity or to do this or do that, because now they can go to Joe Schmo, be like, hey, buddy, I understand that you're doing this, but if we did this, you see how many steps we just eliminated? And then Joe Schmo goes, you've got to be the smartest person on this planet. We have to teach our kids to still interact with some of these people because we cannot keep them in a bubble their entire lives. We have to make sure that they can operate in the real world. There's a few people who are fabulous and can do all of the things and have ranches and they can just live inside of their own little worlds, but most of us cannot. And so we have to teach our children how to interact with the psychos and not lose themselves. That is the true test of being a parent. That is the true test of where our country is really going to go. I tell you guys often, and we're going to take a commercial break and I have one more thing I want to talk to you guys about today. It's going to really make your blood boil. I talked to my Austin and he and I, he's probably my best sparring partner politically. And the worst part is I gave him his foundation and then he ran with it. And now he makes me look like a leftist. It's hysterical. Like some days I can't argue back with him. And I don't know if I've created a monster or if I've done the world a favor. But you know, this is how we build foundations for our children. There's no greater feeling than when the master becomes the student. It's not just an old Confucius says moment. That's real talk. There's no greater moment than when you've taught your child something, that they've multiplied it and they've brought it back to you and made you have to think about it. And not in like a what in the world is wrong with this kid kind of way, but like in a holy crap, my kid is smarter than me kind of way. And the bar may not be set too high for my kids on them becoming smarter than their mother. But man, that's an amazing feeling. It really is. In the conversations with Alex specifically this week and with his dad and I, you know, when he went off to go get in the shower or do something anyway, and Manny and I were just kind of a little bit in awe about the whole conversation. Some of it frustrated and some of it just like, wow, that's our kid. I think, you know, when we say it all the time, when he really finds himself, the world's going to be in trouble because he's ridiculously talented and incredibly wickedly smart. And he's got such a heart, but he sells himself short because He doesn't think that because he checked all the boxes in traditional school, that means he can't be useful in the real world. And I'm like, that makes you more useful in the real world. We have got to do our part to edify out of the box thinking. Because if not, everyone will continue to fall prey to the same old, same old. Okay. Reset. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back because there is some stuff that is happening. Speaking of outside of the box thinking, there's this document. Gosh, it's called the, what's that old thing called? Oh, the Constitution. The Constitution. It's being trampled on and yet one more way. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So seriously, next time you see a law enforcement officer, you definitely want to give them a hug after we're done with this. We're going to take a commercial break, y'all, and we're going to be right on back. We are back with a huge, huge thank you to our amazing sponsors, the Montgomery County Tea Party. Don't forget, Don't forget tonight is the night. Tonight is the night. Make sure that you're at Citizens Grill in Conroe, Texas. The meeting starts at 6:30 sharp, so try and be there early. Where's the mirror? I'm speaking to the man in the camera. I mean, the woe man in the camera. Awkward. Maybe I'll change my ways. I hate Michael Jackson, but that song does crack me up a little bit. Anyway, be at Citizens Grill in Conroe, Texas. You're going to have fun. Arthur has already said he will be there signing autographs, so you guys can look forward to that. Make sure that you get there early so that you can hug some necks, order something yummy to eat, and just find some friends to sit with, or bring some friends, or find new friends. It'll be fun either way. Of course, the VFW, not just kidding, the Vietnam, well, I mean, we do the VFW also, but the Vietnam Veterans of America, their service and sacrifice went far beyond a distant shore. They continue to serve for their communities, for their fellow veterans and their families every single day. So make sure you check out vva.org. It's on the link on our Texas Fully Loaded page under sponsors and friends. So you can find out more about them and find out how you can get involved. There's always, always, always something going on. So make sure you tell those Vietnam veterans welcome home, because they definitely deserve it. If you are interested in hosting a commercial here on Texas Fully Loaded, make sure you go to texasfullyloaded.com, reach out to us one way or the other. We would truly appreciate it. Don't forget about Mammoth Nation. Go to mammothnation.com/#WeThePeopleWork. Make sure you use that link, because that gets you a discount on the annual fee. So it's only $25 if you do it that way. If you just go to mammothnation.com, you're not supporting Texas Fully Loaded and you don't get a discount. So make sure you do the #WeThePeopleWork. That link is on our on our website as well. And it's scrolling right down here on the bottom. You can also, when you go to the Texas Fully Loaded website, you can go to the Texas Fully Loaded shop. You can get new shirts and hats, and you guys are going to, I'm like, why did I say hats? You can get new shirts and cups. So make sure you go and do that, texasfullyloaded.com, and then click on the TFL shop, and that'll take you straight to the link, and you're supporting a Texas American veteran-owned business as well. So, man, that's a mouthful. I feel like there's more that I need to say, but I forgot. But if you just want to support us directly, when you go to texasfullyloaded.com, you can click on #WeThePeopleWork and support us directly that way, or in person. Simon, I'm sure we need to take something. I don't know what we're taking for what else we're taking in lieu of money today. Simon will tell us, and then we'll put it up there. Don't you worry about it. Gosh darn it. Okay. Now I have Bacon here on the phone with us, our dear friend from Bacon Nation. We're going to try and do this. He's from a remote bunker. Bacon, can you hear us?
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Okay, now can y'all hear him? It's the better question. Y'all should be able to, because I got him put right on the microphone. So, Bacon, we have some stuff that has been happening with our very most favorite sheriff on this entire planet, Sheriff Capers. Do you want to kind of give us that lowdown a little bit?
It's been in the news, national, actually worldwide, international, about he was implicated in some corruption and some bad reporting as far as being accused of willfully misleading the media. Imagine that, media getting misled. And then looks like everything that he was accused of has turned out to be nothing more than a hack job, nothing more than just a bunch of falsities from some folks that he had arrested years ago, and the media took it hook, line, and sinker.
I want to be angry that the media would not be reporting facts. I think we are the only media really on the planet anymore that gives that gives accurate information. So I've got the article up on the screen. It's kind of, if you will, the shot that was heard around the world for our sheriffs, for specifically our constitutional sheriffs. You've been saying it the best. They're going after the white hats with the badge, because it's not just Sheriff Capers that the media, the leftist agenda is going after. But it is our sheriffs in general that they're attacking. They went after the police departments. The BLM did their best to completely gut them, but they really did nothing about our sheriffs at the time, which really shows how stupid they are, because the sheriffs are the ones with the constitutional authority and power given to them by the Constitution. It's something that the left like to kind of crap all over. And so now that they're actually kind of reading it, they're like, oh, wait, we should have gone after them. So they've been out giving a crap ton of lies by former employees. And honestly, Walt, without going too far, because I know that you've got some stuff that you want to share about it, and you have put out on Bacon Nation's Facebook page. So the article itself specifically talks about one person named Michael Flint. Is that correct?
That is correct. A former Humble police officer, and then hired into the San Jacinto County Sheriff's Department, later becoming a lieutenant to lead their drug interdiction team that they have for that Sheriff's Department for a couple of years.
Okay, sorry. I had to have a mom moment because you were talking. Yes. So this guy is actually, from what I have read, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fear and intimidation and the corruption that he was accusing Sheriff Capers of in his department at the San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office, honestly, it looks like there's a 25-year book or more of Michael Flint being the one that is corrupted and does fear and intimidation.
I would have to say that you are correct. The Humble Police Department actually had him down as a bad cop. He was being investigated. He was actually stalking people, making threats. The Department of Public Safety allowed him with the DEA on their HIDA teams, or on the Harris County Narcotics Task Force, which is multiple agencies from around the area. Will be able to put a police officer or two into what they're doing, and they're utilized for these different raids and busts around the area. And what's odd is we actually obtained the former. At one time, there was information within that came to the purview of the San Jacinto County Sheriff, which started an investigation against this guy. Now, San Jacinto County, since Capers had become sheriff, has had their county judge indicted. And then mysteriously, well, not mysteriously, it was out in the public, when the venue was moved to Montgomery County, the county judge who had threatened to kill his wife, had allegedly threatened to kill his wife, this is the old one, and who had gone in, broken into his court clerk's office and changed a bunch of government documents and using her stamp because they had to be officiated by her. This all went to trial in Montgomery County, and once the state rested its case, it was all thrown out by our very own Judge Phil Grant. And then it was with prejudice that it was thrown out so that it could never be retried again. This is a prominent attorney, former county judge Don Lovett. Oh, wait, hang on, John Lovett, who was going through a divorce with his wife just prior to Hurricane Harvey that the malfeasance had started. There's a record of this going on. The county judge, the commissioner's court, and all that kind of stuff. You know, San Jacinto County flipped from Democrat to red back in 2014 with the work of the Republican Party there. However, it turns out a lot of the D's that flipped over had, they're nothing more than still D's. So we get back to this Officer Michael Flint, with the Humble Police Department. He had actually lied on his application, both with PCOL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and with the county of San Jacinto County, the sheriff's department. And ironically, after he was terminated / resigned, because it was one of those "you're not going to fire me, I quit" type situations, a criminal investigation had been done. He had been arrested. If you go to the San Jacinto County Sheriff's Department page from 2018 or 19 or 2020, I forget which one it was. This guy had, all of his information was placed there on Facebook for God and everyone else to see. The maniacal individual himself actually turned around and ran for sheriff, and then had the backing of a couple of the county commissioners who, of course, when they figured out that capers could not be bought, they turn around and supported just a bunch of lies, a big campaign against the sheriff's department, to include cutting the budget, not allowing certain things to go forward within his budget, so that he could not keep. It's one of the least advancing sheriff's departments as far as pay is concerned in the area. And then, as you know, we had the big Orpeza shooting out there. Prior to that shooting, there had been just a bunch of scuttlebutt back and forth where, again, we have a change of venue to where Deputy Flint, to where Deputy Flint had, he was given, they basically got rid of his court case, his prosecution against him as well. And that would be through the help of, obviously, a lot of our officials here in Montgomery County. So we let a bad cop out on the street. Now, when we say that, the proof we have is in the reports from the city of Humble, where the mayor, the city council, the former police chief, the current police chief, they were all very aware of his felony practices. These were things that were reported to the FBI. Nothing was done. To TCOL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, nothing was done. To the Texas Rangers, nothing was done. To the Attorney General's office via Chief David Maxwell of the Attorney General's office. You'll notice that name. He's one of the whistleblowers that turned on Kim Paxton. Nothing was done. And there is a long list of dirty cops that the police or the sheriff's departments have tried to prosecute these individuals to no avail, allowing dirty cops for basically the past decade to get out and to get by. And we found that the Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas, CLEAT, was one of the ones behind making sure these cops they're afforded a 5-star rating as they leave different departments and agencies whenever they should be going to jail, spending physical time in jail. So one of the things, and I've been showing the 2 letters that you posted on your Twitter page to kind of help people see some of this corruption. Now, one of the very first things that people don't understand is, I think a lot of people are going, well, if Capers and the San Jacinto Sheriff's Office is innocent of the allegations, how come they're not saying anything? And the reality is that they're under a gag order. This stuff has been expunged. How do you say it, Walter? It's been expunged. It's been expunged. So they're not allowed, as far as on their side, they're not allowed to say anything because they can't. Michael Flint, however, is using that as a heyday pass so that he can create his own narrative with what they're not allowed to respond to. Even all the way down to this joke, $50,000 joke that San Jacinto County commissioners decided to do a investigation into the department that was not conducted properly and just wasted funds. And they were not supposed to speak about it. It was talked about in commissioner's court under a executive council time. And then you have a committee man, a commissioner who's passing out the report like cotton candy. So the joke you're referring to is a report from the Lions Institute and Lion Strategies, whatever they're called. They're a law enforcement leadership consulting company, and they go in and gauge what's going on with your department and give you, they basically do whatever you ask. And so the commissioners had asked, hey, do a review of our sheriff's department here and tell us what we got. Well, they never talked to anyone in the sheriff's department. They talked to former employees. They talked about command climate. There's this report that got out, and the reason why it got so much heat was because of the Oropesa shooting, where Francisco Oropesa, the illegal alien, went in and gunned down 5 Hondurans, some legal, some illegal. They were basically hiding in the wings of Trails End, which is one of those colonias outside of Montgomery County. Literally, it opens up into Montgomery County on Highway 105, much similar to what they have over in Liberty County in Plum Grove, where there's over 75,000 illegal aliens that own different properties, work in the Houston area. Some are hardworking illegal aliens, and some are criminal illegal aliens. But either way, it's been a part of our stain here in the Houston area for the past 20 years. And this shooting opened up the door to the fact that San Jacinto County commissioners do not put their money into their law enforcement, nor do they put it into their infrastructure. However, they all have the latest of pickup trucks for the commissioner. Anyway, and the fun part is this criminal cop who, on record with the city of Humble, actually stalked a woman. She went to file charges, asked for help, and it turned out the police department, Delbert Dawes is the police chief. He was physically scared of this man. He even states so in an undercover where the San Jacinto County Sheriff's Department serves a search warrant for the personnel records of this officer, Michael Flint, Sergeant Michael Flint at the time. And come find out, there was a personnel file, but they decided, you know what? This guy's going to resign and retire. So he's living on retirement. This guy's going to resign and retire. So we're just going to let him leave and become someone else's problem instead of fixing the problem. And so the city of Humble threw onto the residents and to the taxpayer of San Jacinto County a dude who openly breaks the law. There's several police officers who testified in these depositions in the criminal case to the fact that he may have been stealing narcotics on the raids and things that they were doing there. He was tracking vehicles. He was stalking employees. He was carrying on an affair with a court reporter, a court clerk.
Yeah.
And when she went to cut it off, it was like, I'm going to expose it. I'm going to expose this to everything. And there's text messages. And like I said, the Department of Public Safety gave this man, he was he basically had his own identity that the state of Texas gave him. And at one point, the Harris County District Attorney's Office is upset, but doesn't do anything. They don't do anything to the fact that there's a dirty cop out there because, well, look at the cases that he was involved in, the people that went to jail because of his arrests, and look at what might happen. So what do? They let the cop off scot-free, even though he is literally physically out there threatening the lives of this lady, her family. The police chief at one point says he was afraid that the guy was going to come back and shoot the police station up. It just shows you the cowardice of a police chief and the leadership within a department. And the current police chief there now was the assistant chief at the time and was purview to these meetings. And so whenever in 2020 he took over the department, that was it. And these guys are scared of attorneys, the private attorneys that were hired by this officer, probably through his insurance policy of CLEAT, the Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas, or as I like to call them, the Corruption Law Enforcement Association of Texas, because it's very obvious they're only going to be there to defend the bad cops. And they keep everyone out of a lawsuit, whereas that keeps the bad cops out of jail. And people just get scared of lawsuits and then they walk away from it. for this to become someone else's problem, i.e. San Jacinto County. Now, the arrogant part of this is that Officer Michael Flint, who later became Lieutenant Michael Flint of the San Jacinto County Sheriff's Department, went and sought this expungement, thought everything was going to disappear, but he didn't realize that people like KTRK, our agency, our group, FOIA'd legally all of the old investigation documents to include the verbatim videos of law enforcement, mayors, city managers, court attorneys, and city attorneys of Humble, that this guy is such a twisted turd. And pretty much all the stories and lies that he put out that were in this Lyons report are unfounded, because the narrative is completely different. So you have a corrupt company, like, in my opinion, a corrupt company by a failed individual, this Mike Alexander, who did this report. He comes out and drops this document on the commissioner's court up there, who spent $50,000 on it. And they spent $50,000 to not follow any of the suggestions, just basically to dig up dirt, throw it out there in public.
Well, and the best part is that the dirt that they quote unquote dug up wasn't even anything that was valid. In the Lyons report, which Texas Fully Loaded obtained also, they go so far, this Michael Alexander goes so far as to say that it was because of fear and intimidation that nobody responded to the text, or I'm sorry, the surveys that they had sent out to the employees of the San Jacinto Sheriff's Office. And I couldn't help but laugh at it, because I think that the people who, I have personally spoken with deputies that are underneath of Sheriff Capers. I've personally spoken to, of course, Tim Keene, which is his chief. I've spoken to, just people there in San Jacinto as residents, people who work in the office and auxiliary positions for the sheriff's office. They have all talked about the uphill battle that Sheriff Capers has had. They have all talked about the bias of half of the commissioner's court. They've all talked about the BS that he inherited and has been continually cleaning up, and has gotten the outside resources to do so, and how the commissioner's court keeps crapping on him every time he asks for resources or help. And so it's laughable, number one, for this Michael Alexander to say that when he didn't do his due diligence as, quote, somebody who was supposed to be investigating them, to actually get off of his derriere and investigate. So the Lyons report reads as a joke, number one. I do want to go back a little bit and talk about some of these letters and about Cleat. So you mentioned that we legally FOIA'd the box of evidence prior to all of it being sealed. The letters that we have that I've been showing up here on the show, they're from March 17th, is when Cleat made a complaint to the Humble Police Department about them talking and not
March
squashing
17th, March 17th of what year?
2017. Yeah, 2017.
Okay. So you can see, and because your time is getting limited here, so here's a quick rub on this. KPRC Robert Arnold has picked up this story, not just for the corruption of the Lyons report, because he was in KTRK Channel 13. They physically had a copy of this box, but yet they went with the AP report that Jake Blyberg did. Jake Blyberg is an AP reporter, and if you look at his work, it looks like he just does hit pieces on cops all over the country. So he's basically a left-wing media assassin who comes in to assassinate the character of good cops, and he's probably done some stories on some bad cops as well. But it was very obvious that there is a relationship between him and this Officer Flint. And again, these arrests, the whole you say a box of evidence. It's as our box of evidence. We had to go in and they pay the money for them to reproduce everything. We got physical copies of the depositions. We got physical copies of the interrogations of the police from within of the Humble Police Department. But the fact of the matter is the complete and total lack of the ability from the Department of Justice on down to the Texas Rangers and the Texas Attorney General's office. And this at the time needs to be made clear. This is the former Attorney General's office of Greg Abbott. prior to him being elected as governor, and then the former Attorney General's office of Kim Paxton. Obviously, after he had become the Attorney General, and of course his law enforcement chief, David Maxwell, former Texas Ranger David Maxwell, who has a distinct record with the Texas Rangers as being exemplary. However, he also has a subdued record that not a lot of people talk about. So there's a lot of allegations into what his law enforcement career was like as a Texas Ranger, and then of course as the chief of the Attorney General's office, which is kind of neat because those recordings are legally obtained. Also, will be coming out as well.
We are out of time. One of the lines, because I know people can't really read this letter well on our on the screen here, but you can go to the TX Bacon Nation on Twitter at TX Bacon Nation. Look at them for yourselves. But one of the most startling lines in this is because of the settlement, if you will, for lack of better terms, the agreement, I should say, that was made between Cleat and the Humble Police Department with relation to Michael Flint and the harassment and the threatening and the stalking of the young woman that he was in an affair with. The chief of police actually says in the letter, Brian, what we did do was give a very guilty man an honorable discharge. I have protected him. And, now this is essentially what we're getting. I need you guys to go back and watch this. It is absolutely startling what's on here. And you guys, this is not going to be the last time that we talk about this. This is just the beginning. So gear up, because we are absolutely not going to let off of this bone, because Sheriff Capers is our heart here on Texas Fully Loaded. We absolutely love him. He's a dear friend. But he's not the only sheriff that they're coming after. We're seeing sheriffs across the nation where this exact kind of hostile attack is happening. And we're not going to sit by and let our constitutional sheriffs, our last line of defense, be defenseless. So Texas Fully Loaded is definitely going to be standing in the gap for our sheriffs. We are out of time. I will see you guys tonight at the Montgomery County Tea Party, and the rest of you guys will see you tomorrow on Texas Fully Loaded. Bye, y'all.